Have you ever wondered what it would be like to wake up one day and discover that everyone around you only loves your money? Never you? My name is Wei Chen, and at 35 years old I controlled a tech empire worth $2.3 billion. My company, Chen Innovations, had revolutionized artificial intelligence in China and expanded worldwide. I had everything a man could desire: mansions in 3 countries, luxury cars, private jets, and women who appeared like butterflies drawn to the glitter of gold. It was on a cold Tuesday morning in Shanghai that my life changed forever. I was in my office on the 47th floor when I overheard a conversation that shattered my soul. "Of course I don't really love him," whispered Mei Ling, my girlfriend of 2 years, speaking on the phone. "Did you see the apartment he gave me? And the unlimited credit card? Once we get married, half of everything will be mine. I just have to put up with this weird man for a few more months." I stood frozen behind the slightly open door of my private office. Mei Ling, the woman I thought I loved, who swore she loved me, was planning my future as if I were just a walking bank account. "He's so naive," she continued, laughing. "He thinks I'm different from the others. All these millionaires are the same, lonely and desperate for attention. It's like taking candy from a baby." It felt like 1,000 knives had pierced my chest at once. It wasn't the first time. At 20, I discovered my first girlfriend was only interested in my family inheritance. At 28, another woman tried to blackmail me with intimate photos after she found out about my fortune. And now, at 35, the same story was repeating itself. That night, alone in my 800 square meter mansion that felt more like a mausoleum, I made the most radical decision of my life. I called my trusted lawyer and accountant. "I want to transfer my entire fortune into a blind trust," I told them. "I want access only to a small monthly allowance, just enough to live like a lower middle-class person." "Mr. Chen, this is madness," my lawyer protested. "What if something happens? What about your business? Keep everything running. Say that I'm traveling indefinitely. I want to disappear, but not from life. I want to disappear from my identity." 3 weeks later, I was on a flight to Los Angeles with a small suitcase, fake documents identifying me as David Chen, a Chinese immigrant trying to start over, and only $3,000 in my pocket. I chose East Los Angeles, a neighborhood where many Latino and Asian immigrants lived in hardship, where I could blend in easily. I rented a tiny 1-bedroom apartment for $800 a month, the same amount I used to spend daily on meals in my previous life. The first weeks were a brutal shock. I learned to cook instant noodles, to wash clothes in public laundromats, to calculate every penny before buying anything. But there was something surprisingly liberating about it all. For the first time in years, no one knew me, no one wanted anything from me. I got a job as a janitor in a small community hospital, St. Mary's Medical Center. It was a humble job, but it gave me purpose and the opportunity to observe humanity in its rawest and truest form. It was there, in the 3rd week, that I saw her for the first time. She was running down the hallway, a stethoscope swinging around her neck, her dark brown hair tied in a messy ponytail. She wore worn-out blue scrubs and old white sneakers that told stories of long shifts. But her eyes shone with a genuine compassion I had never seen before. "Mr. Rodriguez, how are you feeling today?" I heard her ask an elderly patient, her voice sweet but professional. "I brought that chamomile tea I promised. I know the meds leave a bad taste in your mouth." She had taken out a small package from her own pocket, clearly something she had bought with her own money to comfort a patient. "Thank you, my daughter," replied the man in Spanish, tears in his eyes. "You're an angel." I watched the scene, hidden behind my cleaning cart, feeling something stir in my chest that I had never experienced before. It wasn't physical desire or fascination with beauty. It was something much deeper. It was as if I was seeing, for the first time in my life, what it truly meant to love and care for someone without expecting anything in return. In the days that followed, I began to watch her discreetly. I found out her name was Sofia Morales. She was 25 years old, and she worked double shifts almost every day. During the day she was a nurse at the hospital, and 3 nights a week she worked as a waitress at a small Mexican restaurant in the neighborhood. I saw her carrying an old worn-out backpack, always with nursing books inside. During her breaks, she studied to earn a specialization, dreaming of becoming a pediatric nurse practitioner. What impressed me most was her generosity. Even though she earned little, she always brought homemade food to share with coworkers who were struggling. I saw her give her own fever medicine to a cleaning staff member who didn't have health insurance. I saw her stay beyond her shift, unpaid, to comfort families who had lost loved ones. For 3 months, I watched her live a life of purpose and genuine love, while I pretended to be just another invisible worker at the hospital. Each passing day, I fell more deeply in love not just with her beauty, but with her pure soul. But there was a problem. How could a man who had lied about his entire identity approach such an authentic woman? How could someone who had built a life based on pretenses deserve someone so real? The answer came in a way I could never have predicted. Have you ever felt your heart race so fast you thought it might explode? That's exactly what happened when I finally mustered the courage to approach Sofia. It was a rainy Thursday in November. Los Angeles rarely saw rain, but when it did, it transformed the entire city. The streets of East LA became even more deserted. The neon lights of small businesses reflected on the wet asphalt, and there was a melancholy in the air that perfectly matched my state of mind. I had spent 3 months merely observing Sofia from afar, learning every detail of her routine. I knew she always arrived at the hospital at 6:30 a.m., drank black coffee without sugar from the second-floor machine, and always checked on the patients in room 204 first, where Mr. Rodriguez, who had become like a grandfather to her, stayed. But that specific morning, I had made a decision that would change everything. "I can't go on like this," I whispered to myself, looking into the fogged-up mirror of my tiny bathroom. "If I don't do something, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." My plan was simple but risky. I would fake a medical emergency during her shift. Nothing serious, just something that would give me a reason to be in the hospital as a patient, not as an employee. I would pretend to feel unwell during my lunch break and be taken to the emergency room. At 11:30 a.m., I put my plan into action. I was cleaning the third-floor bathroom when I began to fake feeling ill. I sat on the floor, leaned my head against the wall, and started breathing heavily. "Help!" I shouted in English with my Chinese accent, which I had learned to make more pronounced to maintain my facade. "Please, someone." Gpel.com. Within seconds, 2 nurses appeared. They helped me to the emergency room, where I was placed on a stretcher. My heart was racing. Not because of the lie I was telling, but because of the possibility of finally speaking with Sofia. "What happened?" asked Dr. Martinez, the attending physician, checking my blood pressure. "I don't know," I replied, feigning confusion. I was working and suddenly everything started spinning. I felt like I was going to faint. He performed some basic tests, but fortunately everything was normal, except for my blood pressure, which was genuinely high due to nervousness. "We'll keep you under observation for a few hours," he said. "It might just be stress and fatigue, but it's better to be sure." That's when she appeared. Sophia entered the small emergency room like a ray of sunshine piercing through a storm. Even after 4 hours of her shift, she radiated a warm energy that made the cold hospital environment feel more welcoming. "Hello, mister." She checked my improvised chart. "David," I responded, my voice coming out raspier than I intended. "David Chen." "Mr. David, I'm Sophia, your nurse," she said with a genuine smile that made my stomach do somersaults. "How are you feeling?" For the first time in 3 months, she was speaking directly to me. Her brown eyes had tiny golden flecks I had never noticed from afar. There were small expression lines around them, signs of someone who smiled often and genuinely. "Better now," I replied honestly, because I truly felt better just having her near. She laughed softly. "That's good. I'll check your vital signs again." As she checked my blood pressure, I could smell the subtle scent of her soap. Something simple and clean, nothing elaborate or expensive. Her hands were soft yet firm, showing years of experience caring for people. "Your blood pressure is still a bit high," she said, frowning with genuine concern. "Have you been feeling stressed lately?" "Yes," I admitted. "Very stressed." Gpel.com. "Did you move here recently?" she asked, evidently noticing my accent. "A few months ago. From China. It's been hard to adapt." Dictionary.cambridge.org. +3. yen.wikipedia.org. +3. Dictionary.cambridge.org. +3. Her face softened with understanding. "I can imagine. My family came from Mexico when I was 10. I know what it's like to be far from home, trying to build a new life." Gpel.com. Something in the way she said that, with so much affection and empathy, warmed my heart in a way I had never experienced. There was no pity in her voice, just genuine understanding. "Have you been working here long?" I asked, genuinely curious to hear her story. 3 years, she replied, adjusting my pillow. "I started right after graduating from nursing school. This place kind of became my second home." "And do you like it? The work, I mean?" Her eyes sparkled in a way that took my breath away. "I love it. Every day is different. Every patient has a story. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes heartbreaking, but always meaningful. You know when you feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be." He knew. Because at that moment, looking into her eyes, I felt exactly that. "I completely understand," I said. Over the next 2 hours, Sophia came to check on me every 30 minutes. Each visit became a small conversation. She told me about her studies to specialize in pediatrics, about how she saved every penny to pay for her courses. I told invented stories about my life in China, mixing truths about my childhood with lies about my current situation. "It must be lonely," she said during one of her visits, "being so far from family." "It is," I admitted. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life." She looked at me with an intensity that made me think she could see through my lie. "But you're building your own life now. That's brave." At that moment I felt a connection so strong it was almost physical. There was something in her eyes, a depth, a wisdom that came from someone who truly understood struggle and sacrifice. At 4 p.m., Dr. Martinez came to discharge me. "Everything looks normal, Mr. Chen. It was probably just stress. But if you feel anything similar again, come back immediately." As I prepared to leave, Sophia appeared with a small bag. "I made ginger tea at home last night," she said, looking a bit shy. "It's good for stress and the stomach." I thought, maybe it could help. I stared at the bag in her hands, completely touched. This woman, who barely knew me, who worked 2 jobs to survive, had given me something from her own home. "Thank you so much," I managed to say. This means a lot." "You're welcome," she smiled. "Take care, Mr. David. And if you need anything, well, you know where to find me." As I walked back home in the light rain of Los Angeles, holding the tea Sophia had given me, I felt that my life had completely changed. Not just because I had finally spoken to her, but because, for the first time, someone had shown genuine kindness to me. Not for my money, not for what I could offer, but simply because I was a human being in need of care. But now I had an even bigger problem. I had lied to the most honest woman. Have you ever felt like the universe was conspiring to bring 2 people together? In the weeks that followed my accident at the hospital, it felt like fate was playing games with us. 3 days after I was discharged, I was buying ingredients for a simple soup at the Mexican market on Cesar Chavez Avenue when I saw her again. Sophia was standing in front of the canned beans, calculating prices with a small pink calculator that looked like it had seen better days. "Mr. David," she said, surprised to see me. "How are you feeling?" "Much better, thanks to your tea," I replied, lifting the bag she had given me. "I actually used the last portion this morning." She smiled, and I noticed she looked tired. She had faint dark circles under her eyes, and her shoulders were slightly hunched, signs of someone working too hard. "I'm glad it helped," she said. "My grandmother always said ginger tea cures almost everything: broken hearts, upset stomachs, and homesickness." "Your grandmother sounds wise." "She was," Sophia smiled wistfully. "She passed away last year. She's the reason I started studying nursing. She spent her last months in a hospital in Tijuana, and I wanted to make a difference for people like her." There was a depth to her pain that I instantly recognized. It was the same loneliness I felt, the kind that comes from losing your anchor in the world. "I'm sorry," I said, and I truly meant it. "Thank you," she sighed. "Sorry, I shouldn't be talking about sad things at the market." "Don't apologize. Sometimes it's good to talk about the people we love." She looked at me curiously. "You speak like someone who understands loss." "I do," I admitted. "I left a lot behind when I came here." We stood in silence for a moment, 2 strangers sharing a moment of mutual understanding between grocery aisles. "Are you doing anything now?" she suddenly asked. "I mean, after shopping." My heart sped up. "No, why? There's a small Mexican cafe 2 blocks from here. They make the best café con leche in East LA. If you'd like, we could have a coffee. You seem like you could use a friend." 20 minutes later, we were sitting at a small Formica table at Café Esperanza, a cozy spot with sunshine yellow walls and soft mariachi music playing in the background. Sophia had insisted on paying for her own coffee, and I let her, understanding it was important for her to maintain her independence. "So, what did you do in China?" she asked, stirring her coffee with a little plastic spoon. "I worked with computers," I said, technically true. "Nothing very glamorous. And you? Have you always wanted to be a nurse?" "Not really," she laughed. When I was little, I wanted to be a vet. But, well, life has its own plans, right? There was something in the way she said that made me realize there was a deeper story there. What happened? Sophia was quiet for a moment, watching the steam rise from her cup. My dad got sick when I was 18. Lung cancer. Mom and I took care of him at home for 2 years. That's when I discovered I liked taking care of people. That I had a knack for it. Did he recover? No, she said softly. But in those last months, I was able to give him dignity and comfort. And I realized I wanted to do that for other families. I was amazed by this woman's strength. She had turned her pain into purpose, her loss into a life mission. That's why you work so much, I observed. It's not just that, she said, and for the first time she seemed hesitant. Well, I'm saving money for something specific. For your specialization. That too, but... She paused, as if deciding whether she could trust me. Can I tell you something? Promise you won't think I'm crazy. I promise. I'm saving up to open a free clinic in the neighborhood, she said quickly, like she wanted to get it all out before changing her mind. I know it sounds impossible, but there are so many people here without access to basic health care. Kids who can't afford checkups, elderly folks who can't buy their medications. She stopped blushing. You probably think I'm dreaming too big. I looked at her, completely captivated. Here was a woman earning little more than minimum wage, working 2 jobs, and yet dreaming of helping others for free. I don't think you're dreaming too big, I said. I think you're dreaming just right. Her eyes lit up. Really? Really? How much do you need to get started? I did some calculations, she said, pulling a small notebook from her purse. With basic equipment, a small rental space licenses. Around $200,000. I almost choked on my coffee. For me, 200 grand was what I used to spend on a weekend in Monaco in my former life. But for Sophia, it was a seemingly impossible mountain to climb. I know it's a lot of money, she said quickly, misreading my reaction. But I'm saving $500 a month. Well, about 30 years I'll get there. The innocence and determination in her voice broke my heart. Here was an extraordinary woman, with a dream that could change lives, being held back only by the lack of resources, something I could solve with a single wire transfer. Sophia, I said, what if I told you there are people who invest in dreams like yours? Investors, she laughed. David, you're very sweet, but what kind of investor would care about a free clinic in East LA? If only she knew. You never know, I said. Sometimes angels show up when you least expect them. We spent the next 2 hours talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her shifts at the restaurant, the patients that touched her the most, her plans to pursue a master's in pediatric nursing. I shared made-up stories about my life in China, but kept the focus on her. When we left the cafe, it was already getting dark. Sophia checked her watch and sighed. I have to go. My shift at the restaurant starts at 7. Can I walk you there? He offered. You don't have to, but thank you. We walked in comfortable silence through the streets of East LA. There was something magical about that moment. The streetlights beginning to flicker on, the distant sound of music from nearby homes, the aroma of Mexican food in the air. David, she said as we reached the restaurant. Thank you for today. It's been a long time since I talked to someone about important things. Thank you, I said honestly. You reminded me why dreaming is still worth it. She smiled, and for a moment, it looked like she was going to say something else. But instead she just waved and went inside. As I walked back home, my mind was racing. I had the power to make Sophia's dream come true instantly. I could make an anonymous donation, buy the necessary equipment, find the perfect space for the clinic. I could be the angel she didn't know she was waiting for. But there was one problem. How could I do it without revealing my identity? And more importantly, would she feel betrayed when she found out I had lied about who I really was? That night, alone in my small apartment, I made another decision that would change everything. I would call my lawyer in the morning. I had found a cause worth fighting for. And more importantly, I had found someone worth fighting for. But before I could help Sophia achieve her dream, I had to be honest with myself about my own feelings. I wasn't just fascinated by her. I was deeply, hopelessly in love with a woman who didn't even know my real name. And this was only the beginning of the complications to come. Have you ever felt like a single moment could change your life forever? Mine came 3 weeks after that conversation at the cafe. In a way I never could have predicted. It was a rainy Friday in December when everything fell apart and came together at the same time. I had gone ahead with my plan. I called my lawyer and, through a series of shell companies and anonymous donations, had secretly started funding Sophia's future clinic. I bought a small commercial building 3 blocks from the hospital, hired a renovation company, and began outfitting it with the best medical equipment available. My plan was simple. Finish everything, create a story about an anonymous benefactor who wanted to invest in community clinics, and then reveal the project to Sophia as an incredible coincidence. But the universe had other plans. That fateful morning, I was working my usual shift at the hospital when I overheard a conversation that changed everything. "Sophia, I need to tell you something," I heard Dr. Martinez say from his office. The door was slightly ajar, and I was cleaning the hallway. "We got a strange proposal yesterday." "What kind of proposal?" Sophia asked. "Someone wants to donate a fully equipped building so you can open your community clinic. Everything ready, no costs." There was a long silence. That's impossible," Sophia said. "No one even knows about my dream except you and—" She stopped speaking. I could feel the exact moment when the pieces fell into place in her mind. "David," she whispered. My blood ran cold. "Sophia?" Dr. Martinez asked, confused. "I have to go," she said quickly. "I have to go now." I heard her footsteps rushing down the hallway and knew I was in trouble. I abandoned my cleaning cart and ran after her. But Sophia was already leaving the hospital. I found her outside, standing in the rain, completely soaked and trembling, not from the cold but from anger. "Sophia, let me explain," I began. "Explain what?" She turned to me, the pain in her eyes hitting me like a punch to the gut. "Explain how you lied about everything. Explain how you played with me like I was some naive little doll. It wasn't like that. Wasn't like that." She laughed bitterly. "Then tell me, David. Or is that not even your real name?" I took a deep breath. It was time for the truth. "My name is Wei Chen," I said. "And you're right. I lied about everything. Tears mixed with the rain on her face. Why? Why did you do this to me? Because I'm tired of people loving me only for my money, I exploded. Because every woman I've met in the last 15 years only wanted my bank account. Because I needed to know if someone could love me for who I really am. And who are you really? She asked, her voice cracking. I'm the owner of a tech company in China. I'm worth a lot of money. Billions. But I'm also someone who never had an honest conversation about dreams in a cafe. Someone who never received ginger tea from someone who cared. Someone who never truly loved anyone until I met you. Sophia stared at me, processing everything. Billions, she repeated. $2.3 billion to be exact. Oh my God, she sat down on the wet sidewalk, putting her head in her hands. I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. I knelt in front of her in the rain. You're the most real person I've ever met. You're everything I've ever wanted to be. Genuine, generous, brave. But it was all a lie, she sobbed. Our connection, our conversations, everything. No, I took her cold hands. My feelings for you are the only real thing in my life in the last 10 years. Every moment we shared, every word I said about admiring you, about falling in love with who you are, that's all real. She looked at me through her tears. How can I believe you? How can I believe anything you say? Because I'm going to prove it, I said. The clinic is yours. No conditions, no strings attached. Even if you never want to see me again, even if you hate me for the rest of your life, the clinic is yours. Your dream is going to come true. I don't want your charity, she said, getting to her feet. It's not charity. It's love, I replied, standing up as well. It's a man who fell in love with an extraordinary woman and wants her to change the world, because he knows she can. Sophia was silent for a long moment, the rain falling on us both. I need time, she finally said. I need to think about all this. As much time as you need, I said. I'll wait. She started to walk away, but turned once more. Wei Chen, she said, testing my real name. Why Los Angeles? Why here? Because I wanted to be invisible. And ironically, it was here that I finally felt seen. 2 weeks went by without contact. They were the longest 2 weeks of my life. I kept working at the hospital, but Sophia had requested a transfer to a different shift. I respected her space, but each day without seeing her was agony. On the 3rd week, I received a message from her. Meet me at Café Esperanza at 7 a.m. We need to talk. I arrived 20 minutes early, my heart pounding. When Sophia walked in, she looked different. More mature, more determined. Hi, she said, sitting across from me. Hi, I replied. How are you? Confused. Angry. Hurt, she said honestly. But also, impressed. Impressed. I spent these 2 weeks researching you. Wei Chen, CEO of Chen Innovations. Forbes lists you as one of the richest men in Asia. And you gave all that up to clean bathrooms in East LA. It was the best decision I ever made. Why am I believing you? She asked, almost to herself. Because you know me, I said. You saw who I really am over these months. The man who talked with you at the cafe, who cared about your dreams, who fell in love with your generosity, that's me. The money is just circumstance. Sophia sighed. I visited the clinic yesterday. My heart stopped. And it's perfect, she said, and for the first time smiled softly. Every piece of equipment I dreamed of, every detail I imagined. How did you know exactly what I wanted? Because I listened to every word you said. Because your dreams became my dreams. Wei, she said, using my real name for the first time. If we're going to try this, and I said if I need total honesty. No more lies, no more games. Total honesty, I agreed. And I need to keep my independence. I don't want to be kept by you. I want to keep working, I want to pay my own bills. Of course. And the clinic? It will be mine. My project, my decisions. You can be a silent investor, but I will run it. Perfect. She studied me for a long moment. Why are you smiling? Because you're negotiating with me, I said. Because you're not impressed by my money. Because you're still you. Sophia laughed for the first time in weeks, and the sound was like music. One more condition, she said. What is it? I want to meet the real Wei Chen. Not David, not the billionaire CEO. I want to meet the man you are when no one is watching. That man is in love with you, I said. And he's terrified you'll find out he's not worth all this drama. Sophia reached across the table. Why don't you let me decide that for myself? I took her hand, feeling like I was 6 months later. The Esperanza Clinic opened its doors on a sunny June morning. Sophia, wearing her white coat with her name embroidered on it, cut the red ribbon while the entire community applauded. I stood at the back of the crowd, just another face in the audience. Exactly where I wanted to be. I'd like to thank the anonymous benefactor who made this possible, Sophia said in her speech. But most of all, I'd like to dedicate this clinic to my grandmother, who taught me that love is action. Our eyes met across the crowd, and she smiled, that smile that had captured my heart from the very first day. Later, when everyone had left, we were alone in the clinic. So, she said, how does the silent investor feel? Proud, I replied. And in love with the medical director. That's good, she said, stepping closer. Because the medical director is seriously considering giving the billionaire-turned-janitor a chance. Just considering. Well, she said, wrapping her arms around my neck. He's going to have to prove he's worth it. I've got the rest of my life to prove it, I said. Good, she whispered against my lips. Because so do I. As we kissed in the clinic that represented her dreams and the rebirth of my soul, I knew I had found something more valuable than all the billions in the world. I had found true love, built on honesty, mutual respect, and the certainty that some things in life truly are priceless. And the best part, our story was just beginning. 2 years later. Mr. Chen, said the Forbes reporter, can you comment on your decision to move permanently to Los Angeles and focus on philanthropic projects? I looked over at Sophia, who was organizing medicine at the new branch of the Esperanza Clinic. She wore a simple engagement ring, not the $2 million diamond I had offered, but a small emerald she had personally chosen. I've learned that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, I answered. It's measured in lives touched, dreams fulfilled, and genuine love. And by that standard, I'm the richest man in the world. Sophia looked up at me and winked. In 6 months, she would become Sophia Chen, And together we would expand the clinic network across Los Angeles. Sometimes to find out who you really are, you first have to pretend to be someone else. And sometimes, the greatest investment you can make is in a heart that's worth more than all the treasures in the world.